We're now streaming live.
Oh, there's the. Just click on that. Click on that. Click now, please. Just do what you asked me to
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to what will be our very last Borough Council meeting. Please ensure that your mobile phones are switched off. Kindly go on mute until you need to speak. This is a special meeting and there will be no public speaking. Councillors, when indicating that you want to speak on an agenda item, please can you use the blue hand facility in Zoom. Father Oliver Cross will now lead us in prayer. Over to you, Father Cross.
Thank you very much indeed, Deputy Mayor. It's a privilege as always to be with you all this evening, and not least at the very final meeting of Northampton Borough Council. And just to place on record my thanks to Councillor Sargent for appointing me as chaplain this year. It's been great fun and an unprecedented year to minister to Brian and to Ray. Let us pray. On this day, we thank God for the years past and for the hard work and commitment of those who have served this authority as members and officers. We pray for those we have served, those constituents helped, those dreams fulfilled, and those projects brought to fruitful completion. Especially we give thanks for all those who in the past year have responded to pandemic and distress with courage and heroism, and especially those we honour today. We call to mind those times when we have fallen short or been proved wrong, when our ambition outstripped our talent, or visions failed to match up to reality. We may learn from the past and so guide our future success. We pray for the residents of Northampton and for peace in our streets. We pray for those upon whom the responsibility of government will be laid, and especially for those offering themselves for election as members of the authorities, or for appointment as officers for those who are vulnerable, victims of wicked or tyrannical government, that our way of life may reflect our freedom to do the right as we see the right. We pray for all past members of our corporation who have passed to glory, and especially those who have gone from us in the year that is now past. That our endeavours may be dedicated to the sacredness of their memory. Almighty and eternal God, to whom we must all give account, guide with the spirit of wisdom the councillors of this ancient borough of Northampton. They may be faithful to the mind of Christ and seek in all their purposes to enrich our common life. This we ask through your most precious name. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Now we move on to other declarations of interest from members.
Nobody's indicating.
Thank you. Council, may I approve the minutes of the council meeting held on the 18th of January and 22nd of February 2021? Is that agreed? Thank you. Apologies for absence have been received from the Mayor and Councillors Mary Markham, Councillor Botwood Oldham, Roberts Walker, Kilbride and Patel. Are there any other apologies?
Councillor Smith is indicating to speak.
Okay. Councillor Smith.
How do you indicate?
Also apologies from Councillor Roberts and Councillor Terry Eales.
Thank you. Item 4, Mayor's announcements. Unfortunately, the Mayor is unable to attend, but he has a pre-recorded speech which will be played later on in the meeting. Formal transfer of the Borough Council's mayoralty to the Northampton Town Council and further ancillary matters connected with the mayoralty and its history and heritage. Can I call Councillor Larratt to propose and Councillor Nunn to second?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. This is the...
No, that's the camera.
Hello? I could hear somebody else speaking. My apologies. Can I propose this report that's before you tonight? This is the culmination of the work of the cross-party working group seeking on the governance review that has been going on for 2 years now, at least 2 years. And it seeks to achieve what we set out to achieve 2 years ago, and that was to safeguard the mayoralty of Northampton going into the future. And this report is all about transferring the mayoralty and muniments and artifacts associated with the mayoralty and the history and heritage and all other matters to the town council. There are 5 recommendations in the report, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and I'm pleased to report this and thank all the members of the cross-party working group for their support and commitment over the last 2 years, and not only members of, but our staff who've been very helpful and very patient and have discharged the work admirably. In particular, I'd like to thank Laurie Gould for all his work and commitment to this project. So with pleasure that I propose the recommendations, Madam Deputy Mayor, and I hope that they can be supported unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nunn.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Yeah, delighted to second this report. If I may, I'll reserve my right to speak in the event that there's a debate. Thank you very much.
Of course. Are there any speakers? Okay. Councillor Beersworth.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, absolutely delighted to support this report. It's so important that we keep the heritage of the town in the Guildhall for the new mayor. All these artefacts belong to the people of Northampton, and it's really nice to know they won't be lost for future generations. And it's very important that we have the use of the Guildhall as well, and we're hoping to with negotiations to speak to West Northampton to allow us to do that. So I wholeheartedly support this report.
Thank you. Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'm delighted to second this report as well. It closes one chapter of the Borough Council's history and opens another onto the Northampton Town Council. All these muniments, all these artefacts, everything that's included in the recommendations are a really important part of the heritage and the history of our town. And I'm delighted in many ways that they will have, a life after the 1st of April and will go on to be increasingly important with the town residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stone.
Thank you. I just wanted to quickly say, yes, I absolutely fully support this report. I'm really glad we are where we are. It seems to have taken a very long time, and it is unthinkable that this wouldn't happen. And I'm really pleased that going forward, we have managed to hold on to a really, really important part of the identity of the town for future generations. So I'm really, really pleased that all those issues have been resolved. It's really important that we have the mayoralty and that we have part of the Guildhall for the use of the town. And Councillor Beersworth is absolutely right. These are things that belong not to us, they belong to the townspeople. So thank you, everybody who made all of this possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speakers? No. Councillor Nunn, would you like to come back?
Thank you. I think all points have been covered. This is really important cross-party work that's led to it, and I'm delighted, as I say, to second it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Larratt, as a mover, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'll be very brief. Can I just thank Councillors Beersworth and Stone and Birch for their comments. It's pleasing that this goes through with unanimous support, and can I again thank them for their work on the working group over the last 2 years. So happy to propose, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 6, installation of honorary alderman, alderwoman. I call upon Councillor Nunn to propose and Councillor Stone to second.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'm absolutely delighted to propose this report. There is no doubt that the role of being a local councillor is one that everybody puts tremendous effort in. I say that cross-party. I see how all colleagues support their residents, get involved in council committees and so on. And that can be a thankless task. It's done for the love of the town, and it's done for wanting to put back into something into your local community. There are a small number of ways in which long service can be recognised, and the position of alderman or alderwoman is one of those. I'm therefore delighted to propose this report, and I'll say just a few quick words about the members of my group who are listed here. I know that Councillor Stone will second this, and we'll do the same for members of her group, and then Councillor Beardsworth will be speaking, and we'll briefly mention some comments on some of her group as well. You have on the report here Councillor Chris Malpass, who of course has served the council for a long time. A tremendous year as mayor with an extraordinary number of engagements during that year, and many of you will remember the absolutely extraordinary amount of fundraising that Councillor Malpass did for his chosen charity, the Guide Dogs. I think he did also an awful lot for this town as for this council as an ambassador. There may have been some of us, I hope that I wasn't one, but there may have been some who wondered how well a blind mayor would do, and he did a fantastic job. And that was an extraordinary moment, I think, in the council's history. Councillor Malpass has represented the Billing ward throughout his time as a councillor. Councillor Jamie Lane, again, a very dedicated year as mayor of the council. Having represented Ecton Brook ward, Jamie moved to Boothwell with the boundary changes. And of course, also is very significantly known for the huge commitment that he's put in as chair of our scrutiny committee, a scrutiny committee that time after time is respected not just by our own members, but by national authorities and governing bodies and so on, who hold Northampton scrutiny under Jamie's guidance as a beacon of that type of service. Councillor Penny Flavel was again mayor, dedicating her time and bringing that magical mayoral sparkle to all the groups and events that she chose to visit to that time, but also has put a lot of work in as chair of planning committee and licensing committee during her time, and also represented well the residents of St Crispin's ward, again before a boundary change that saw her move to what was then called Rushmills. Now, you'll hear a little more later about Councillor Tim Hadland and Councillor Phil Larrett as a result of their going forward for the freedom of the borough. But two such dedicated, long-serving councillors you could not find, having made a huge contribution to the work of this council over so very many years and across many areas of the council as well. Councillor Brandon Eldridge, first represented Parklands and then East Hunsbury ward, has held a number of cabinet posts and is probably very well known for his great support for local sports clubs and his strong involvement in local charities as well. Councillor Matt Golby has made a huge contribution across many areas, always with as a member of the New Duston ward, but most particularly many years on the planning committee and across various other committees as well. And I'd like to mention here somebody else who is also on this list for whose approval to go forward as alderman I'll be seeking, if I may please, and was sadly missed from the original report, which is Councillor Michael Hill. Michael served this council for very many years. Many of you remember that he did retire down south for family reasons, but we're absolutely delighted to be able to confer the honour of our alderman, or propose that we confer the honour of alderman on Michael. Michael served again as mayor, is much missed since he's retired, obviously represented the Nen Valley ward alongside myself, so I miss working with him greatly. His contribution to the council in his time here was huge, not least amongst his many skills being he had great expertise across our civic traditions. I'll hand over shortly to Councillor Stone, but just only to say that all of those that I've mentioned and all of the councillors on the list from all parties, I think we can say that they have not just done the time that this requires, but they have done the work that makes this very worthy and very suitable for them all. Thank you, Madam Mayoress, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Stone.
Thank you very much. Public service is a really wonderful thing, isn't it? And I think it's right that we honour those who give their time and who actually, when they're giving their time, what they're also doing is developing their skills and knowledge about public service and about the town and the people in the town. Our politics is very adversarial, isn't it, nationally? That's how we model our politics. And sometimes we forget when we're confronting each other in the chamber that actually what binds us together is the importance we put into making a difference, that we all are passionate about what we do. We want to see life develop for the good for the people of the town. And I think it's really important that there are occasions when we can come together and we can express that collectively. In terms of Councillor Marriott, it's been my huge, great honour and pleasure to work alongside my colleague for the last 10 years. I have learned the hugest amount from him. And what I've learned is about commitment, dedication. It's about paying attention to detail. It's about carrying in your heart the needs of people and the need to get things right. So I take great pleasure in having worked alongside Councillor Marriott for such a long period of time. He first became a councillor many, many years ago in 1995. And he has served across 3 different wards, Welford, St James, and finally Sebelong. And in all of those areas, he has made a huge contribution. Luckily for him, not like me, he knows what it's like to be in power. And he has got lots of achievements from being in power to reflect on in his time there. He's occupied lots and lots of different important positions as chairs of different committees, and he saw through the hugely important improvements around the flooding strategies, the 100-year standard, the development of the Southbridge area, and all of those kind of things, which are really important and are a legacy and a tribute to his activities. So I take great pleasure in seconding all the aldermen, and I'm very pleased to say and to see that we've got older women. I really, really appreciate the development of the language around all of this, and I second the proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Beardsworth to give a short speech.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. I would really like to say tonight that I have 2 colleagues that I respect tremendously in Dennis Meredith and Brian Markham. Both have done long service, both are getting awards tonight, and rightly so. Brian has been a councillor for many years, and Dennis likewise, I think it's about 15 now. He's also a county councillor and has served over there for a long time. Dennis is a man of the people. He's better off with the people and talking to them. He's a great advocate. He loves canvassing and going around his ward and talking to people. He's really good at that personal touch, and he's remarkable in what he's achieved, considering he's been so ill recently with COVID. Brian, on the other hand, has worked tirelessly. We were all in power from 2007 till 2011. When we turned this council around from the worst performing to the most improved council in the country. And we really worked hard in those 4 years, and all of them are testament to all the people who worked there, worked extremely hard in a very short period of time to make some real changes to the council. Brian, but I'd like to also tonight thank all the people that sit at home. I'd like to thank Irene for Brian, and I'd like to thank Rhonda for Rona for Dennis, because they're the ones that take the messages, that sit at home on their own when we're at council meetings, that look after us and take messages and are long suffering. And I'd like to thank my husband as well, because tonight I'm getting an award myself. And I would like to thank Michael, because he's been my rock He's been really good. He's wonderful at taking messages and making sure I follow through on things. He really is pushy. If he says I'm phoning somebody back at 9 o'clock, I do. And so I'd like to thank them all the people that sit at home and wait for us to come home. Thank you so much for all your efforts over the years. Thank you, Mrs. Mayor.
Thank you. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Congratulations to the new honorary aldermen and alderwoman. Just to say that your badges will be delivered to you in the next few days. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Item 7, freedom of the borough. I call upon Councillor Nunn to propose and Councillor Stone to second. Councillor Nunn.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Absolutely delighted that we're covering this evening. It has been some time in the making. Sometime we have felt that there are a number of people or organisations who are deserving of the honorary freedom of the borough. A couple of false starts with dates that then COVID didn't allow us to do. So we are doing this meeting remotely, but the important thing is that we are doing it, and I'm delighted to propose this report. I think we will then individually make comments as we go through, if I've understood correctly, on each of those who are presented for this. So I'll leave my comments at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stone.
Delighted to second, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
Thank you. I call upon Councillor Markham to present. Councillor Sally Beardsworth for the conferment of freedom of the borough.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Caught me by surprise a little. I thought there was going to be more comment on the other freedoms. Anyway, Sally Beardsworth was elected to the Northampton Borough Council in 1983. At that time, there were 4 Liberal councillors elected. Note the change of name of the party. They were Liberals. They were the first Liberal councillors elected to Northampton Borough Council and predecessors for nearly 50 years. And yeah, now all these years later, Sally is there. I say they were 4. They were called the Gang of 4 because that was the time there was a certain other Gang of 4 known around the country. And when Sally was elected, as a young woman, in fact, she must have only been 12 years old. I'm not sure how she was elected in the first place, but as a young woman and a group of inexperienced councillors, they found themselves in the balance of power on the situation. So they had to learn pretty quick what was going on, and nothing happened unless there was agreement with them one way or another. So Sally was thrown very much in the deep end, and she was also, I think it was a totally different council in those days, and I refer particularly Madam Deputy Mayor, but there had been female councillors, there'd been female mayors before that, I think. But it was different. Nearly all the senior officers had been there since before the war. Nearly all the senior officers were men, nearly all the senior councillors were men. And as a tradition, women councillors were referred to as Councillor Miss this or Councillor Mrs. that, to differentiate the fact that they were perhaps a little odd, But Sally, certainly, when she got there, she was not having any of that. She wanted to be called Councillor Sally. And since that time, to all of us on the council, she has been Sally. And she has, as I said, been there a very long time, during which time the party name has changed and the fortunes of the Liberals and Liberal Democrats have also changed over that long period of time. But apart from the time she went to work in America and live in America, and she gave up council duties, during that whole length of time, most unusual for a Liberal Democrat councillor, Sally has never lost an election. We asked her how she does it, and in fact, she says, well, I take the dog for a walk and talk to people around the area I live. And Sally, although the boundaries may have changed and the names may have changed, the ward names may have changed over the years, Sally Beardsworth has represented the people of Kingsthorpe, the area she lives, for for over 32 years now. She's also been a member of the county council for 16 years, which is a long time indeed. Sorry, as I say, during that time on the council, she had the opportunity to be mayor in 2005 and 2006. She made her decision at the start of her mayoralty that she wanted to be a mayor for all the people in Northampton, and she made a conscious effort to reach out to the different communities that then, as now, make up our town. Whether it was Irish, Afro-Caribbean, South Asian, Somali, Polish communities, she did all she could everywhere to reach out to different sections, different communities, different religions in our town. And when she attended her gala dinner as mayor, she was wearing, I'm not sure the name of it, but it was rather impressive and flowing Indian garb of very bright silver and black, and she made that choice in there. So that was Sally. A major thing as well, during the Lib Dem administration, she held the role of cabinet member for housing. During that time, she led the bid, which achieved £58 million, which came to this council, and then the administration changed, but the money was there to get on with the decent improvements around the decent homes changes that came to nearly all council houses in all areas of the town. She also was instrumental when we were talking about stock transfer and stock exchange of our council housing in the town. She led the consultation, part of the consultation, which eventually meant that the council decided to go down the Almo route. The Almo, setting up the Almo, eventually led to the formation of Northampton Partnership Homes, which we all know has been a fantastic success since it came there. That happened after Sally, but Sally was there when we took the decision as a council not to get rid of our council housing stock, and how right a decision that was. When she was mayor, way back 15 years ago now, she became a trustee of the Care House Trust based in Sheep Street. Many would know it as the Ex-Servicemen's Club. The trust was set up many, many years ago to look after the interests of the ex-servicemen and women. Sally has been chair and leader and involved in that trust ever since the time she was mayor. And I think it's a fantastic tribute to her that very short, the club has been closed and the club was unsupported for a long time, and COVID has led to changes there. But what will happen shortly is that a club will be converted to accommodation for ex-service people, much needed, and the surplus land will be taken over by Northampton Partnership Homes, securing a financial future for that trust and those people who very much rely on it.
Okay.
That in itself, to my mind, and the work she's done there certainly deserves some sort of award. So Sally's already taken part of what I was going to say away, of course, because Sally acknowledges she couldn't have done what she's done. And as somebody else said, it's not always an easy job being a councillor. We do rely on our family, our friends for support. And Mike, Sally's husband, acts as her secretary, because as we all know, Sally's not absolutely brilliant when it comes to technology and internet and everything else. But as she said, he has been all these years her support, her confidant, her guide sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Markham.
So to just say, Sally Beards was, as most of all, is a person. She worked in the health service, she worked for Macmillan Trust, and I have great pleasure, Madam Deputy Mayor, in proposing that Councillor Sally Beards was in pursuant of section 249, I think, of the Local Government Act of 1972, be awarded the honorary freedom of the Borough of Northampton. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Malcolm. That was a lovely tribute. I'd like to call upon Councillor Stone to support the conferment of freedom of the borough on Councillor Sally Beardsworth.
Lovely.
Stone.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. They say that a week is a long time in politics. 32 years is some achievement, I feel. So Sally has been a councillor for a very long time, but she's not only been a councillor, she's been a very active one, making sure that she knows exactly what is going on in all parts of the organisation. Not much has ever got past her, I'm sure you will all agree. Sally came from a caring profession as a nurse, and it's this combined with an interest in community organising, I feel, that has been a strong motivation for her to play such an enduring role in public service as a councillor. Her motto, taken from the story of the water babies, is do as you would be done by. Very good motto, in my opinion. So diplomacy, tact and respect in public life is important to Sally. That doesn't mean she can't be sharp in her challenges. She can, and we've all felt the impact of that from time to time. Being forthright, saying it as she sees it, are hallmarks of how seriously she takes her role as a community leader, a political leader, and an active member of the body politic in Northampton, and we thank her very much for that. Sally first became leader of her group in 1997. I might say that again, it's very unusual for women to become leaders of their groups. And certainly at that time, it was very unusual. She was the first woman leader in the borough. So quite an achievement there. We've already heard about the context that she was a councillor in, men as officers, men as councillors, women being marked out as being slightly different and not too accepted, I would judge. So that was quite an achievement, wasn't it? She became leader of her group again in 2011 and remains as leader of her group today. It is true that still nationally, there are very few women leaders of their groups. So it is, again, I think, an additional achievement of hers that we need to note. Sally is married to Mike. We've heard all about Mike this evening, her rocker she calls him, and she's got 2 sons and 2 grandsons. It gives me great pleasure to second the proposal to install Councillor Beardsworth with the Council's freedom this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Beardsworth.
Yes, Mayor.
Yeah, Councillor Beardsworth, can you repeat after me? I, Sally Beardsworth.
I, Sally Beardsworth.
Swear to be good and true.
Swear to be good and true.
To our Sovereign Lady the Queen.
To our Sovereign Lady the Queen.
And her heirs and lawful successors.
And her heirs and lawful successors.
Obedient to the Mayor of this ancient borough for the time being.
Obedient to the Mayor of this ancient borough for the time being.
And obey mayoral warrants.
And obey mayoral warrants.
Precepts and commands.
Precepts and commands.
The freedoms, usages and customs.
The freedoms, usages and customs.
Of this ancient borough.
Of this ancient borough.
I shall well and truly maintain and uphold.
I shall well and truly maintain and uphold.
I shall keep the Queen's peace in my own person.
I shall keep the Queen's peace in my own person.
And shall know no conventicles or conspiracies.
I shall know no conventicles or conspiracies.
Made against the Queen's peace.
Made against the Queen's peace.
But I shall forthwith warn.
But I shall forthwith warn.
The Mayor or Mayor's officials thereof.
The Mayor or the Mayor's officials thereof.
And I shall, as much as lies in my power.
And I shall, as much as lies in my power.
Contribute and do every act and thing.
Contribute and do every act and thing.
For the good government and safety.
For the good government and safety.
Of the rights and privileges of this ancient borough.
Of the rights and privileges of this ancient borough.
And the inhabitants thereof.
And the inhabitants thereof.
All these points and articles.
All these points and articles.
I shall well and truly observe and keep to the best of my skill.
I shall well and truly observe and keep to the best of my skills.
And according to the known laws, rules and customs.
And according to the known rules and customs.
Of this ancient borough.
Of this ancient borough.
So help me God.
So help me God.
It gives me great pleasure to present this award of Freedom of the Borough to Councillor Sally Beardsworth for the long service she has given to the people and the town of Northampton. Councillor Beardsworth, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is such a proud occasion for me. I'm really touched that people think I'm worthy of this. But a councillor doesn't work alone. A councillor works with its community and it works with the officers of the borough. None of what I've achieved could have been done without these 2 factors. I've worked with some wonderful people in Kingsthorpe with which we've achieved amazing things. I've worked with officers on the borough, all of which I found extremely helpful to me, kind, respectful, and I shall miss them tremendously when we stop being a borough. I really, truly believe that over the years, I couldn't have done the job without the support of the officers in the Borough Council. They have been stalwart and I can go to them at any time and ask for advice and they will give it openly and I trust them, which is a great thing in this day and age. The people of Kingsthorpe are wonderful people as far as I'm concerned, but there again, I'm prejudiced. But they do work hard when they have something. We've managed to get a piece of land which we've made into a linear park, where we asked the people of Kingsthorpe to donate, which they did readily, and we collected a lot of money which enabled us to buy a portion of the land. we stopped the village school being closed. That was a great effort from pupils, parents, and myself and the officers of the county council at that time. But whatever you do in life, you cannot take sole responsibility for anything. You will always have help, and the help I've received from these officers especially, and from the community workers in my area have been exceptional, and I thank them wholeheartedly, and I accept this award for them as well as for me. Thank you, Ms. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Beardsworth. I now call upon Councillor Larratt to present Councillor Tim Hadland for the conferment of freedom of the borough.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. It is with great pleasure that I present my colleague and friend of many years, Councillor Tim Hadland, to receive the honour of the freedom of the borough of Northampton. Tim comes from a family that has lived in Northampton for generations. He is a true Northamptonian who cares greatly for our borough and its citizens. Tim was first elected to public office to Northamptonshire County Council in 1977 in St Crispin's division. I don't know if that was a surprise or not, but I remember it as a very good year for the Conservative Party. And he continued to represent the division for 4 years. It was in 1991, Madam Deputy Mayor, that Tim was first elected to this council, and he has served continually since then. He represented Western Ward from 1991 to 2011, and as a Duston resident, he has represented Old Duston Ward since 2011. Tim served for a very interesting and unique 4 years between 1995 and 1999 as the only Conservative member of the council. Of course, during this period, Tim held every office in the Conservative group and was the Conservative spokesman on all portfolio areas. This resulted again, uniquely for a Tory, an in-depth profile of Tim in the Guardian newspaper. Despite being the only Conservative member of the council, Tim always comments that the Labour administration at the time were always very considerate towards him. Tim was mayor in 2001-2002. It was a very busy year during which he undertook almost 500 engagements, 300 of which were with his wife Gilly at his side. This was, of course, a very tragic year, the very tragic year of 9/11, and Tim partook in significant memorial events at that time alongside the Lord Lieutenant and others. As mayor, Tim took great delight in meeting many dedicated people and in what they do for our community, discovering organisations and things most people never know about. Upon his election to the council, Tim became Conservative finance spokesman and remained so until 2011. He also served as a member of the board of the Royal and Derngate Theatres for 20 years. Tim has enjoyed a career as a chartered surveyor working in the well-known local family business based in George Row, and I can remember many discussions and consultations with Tim around his desk. Working as he did, Tim could not get involved in planning within the council. Tim has a passion for regeneration and planning, so when he retired from the business in 2010, he was able to take on the role of portfolio holder for planning and regeneration in 2011, and he remains the portfolio holder for regeneration today. It cannot be said that little has changed over the last 10 years that Tim has been in this role. Under his stewardship, we have seen many great projects commence and come to fruition that significantly impact on the town. For example, the Enterprise Zone, Cosworth Extension, the development of the Vulcan Works, the renovation of Salisbury Abbey, museum extension, the new railway station, Uptree Park, and projects linked with the university. There's others as well. Also under Tim's stewardship, we have obtained significant funding for projects going forward. £8.4 million from the future High Street funds for the Market Square, and £25 million from the Towns Fund for various other projects within the town. I think it's fair to say that Tim has been a great success in his current portfolio. Madam Deputy Mayor, Tim is much admired for his long-standing dedication to this council, to our town and its citizens, his calming influence and his great knowledge and understanding. And of course, it goes without saying, his sharp wit. Madam Deputy Mayor, I'm therefore extremely delighted to present Tim for the award of the Freedom of the Borough of Northampton. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Larratt. I now call upon Councillor McCutcheon to support the conferment of Freedom of the Borough on Councillor Tim Hadland. Councillor McCutcheon. You're on mute, Councillor.
Sure, well, it's telling me I'm not. Get over it now, yes. Thank you. It is an old tradition that members of the opposition parties should support when going for honours such as mayoralty, freedom, alderman, members of their opposite party. And the partisanship for this work, particularly, that we do jointly. And we've heard mention this evening of much of the work that we do jointly, and which, of course, the citizens of our borough expect us to do. And it's particularly the work that Councillor Hadland has done, which is that which the people of Northampton look at frequently most critically. What does our town look like? What are we handing on to the people that are coming after us? Will it be worth having? And Tim has made a real contribution in this area, both in the old executive committees and latterly in the cabinet. It's some of this work is best done jointly, even though it's very difficult to do. And I'd quote the example here of the local plan, which Councillor Stone and I have been able to make a contribution to. Planning for the next 30 years is something which you need to have everybody on board for. And it's extremely good if you've got a person like Tim Hadland who can carry others along with them and take their opinions aboard. And of course, for those of us on our side of the house, the period when we were happiest with Tim's presence was the period 1995 to 99, when he was there on his own. It is perhaps the most interesting time. And certainly I remember Tim actually quite enjoying the fact that he could get through group meetings a lot quicker than others could. The forthcoming executive committees are something that we all look forward to on town council, to being able to make a contribution from all sides and to look into our future of the town. And we'll be doing it with the resources that Tim has been instrumental in gaining for the town. So where we can all share in the praise and blame, we want to give that praise to people like Tim Hadland. It's not just good-heartedness, and it's not just time that we give. It is, I'm glad to say, talents and knowledge. And Tim has been able to bring all of those to the work that he has done on behalf of Northampton Borough Council. And so it's my great pleasure to second Tim Hadland for the freedom of the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCutcheon. Councillor Hadland, please repeat after me. I, Tim Hadland, swear to be good and true You're on mute, Councillor. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Swear to be good and true. Is that working now?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
To our sovereign lady, the Queen.
And her heirs and lawful successors.
And her heirs and lawful successors.
Obedient to the mayor of this ancient borough for the time being.
Obedient to the mayor of this ancient borough for the time being.
And obey mayoral warrants, precepts and commands.
And obey mayoral warrants, precepts and commands.
The freedoms, usages and customs of this ancient borough.
The freedoms, usages and customs of this ancient borough.
I shall well and truly maintain and uphold.
I shall well and truly maintain and uphold.
I shall keep the Queen's peace in my own person.
I shall keep the Queen's peace in my own person.
And shall know no conventicles or conspiracies.
And shall know no conventicles or conspiracies.
Made against the Queen's peace.
Made against the Queen's peace.
But I shall forthwith warn the mayor or mayor's officials thereof.
But I shall forthwith warn the mayor or mayor's officials thereof.
And I shall, as much as lies in my power.
And I shall, as much as lies in my power.
Contribute and do every act and thing.
Contribute and do every act and thing.
For the good government and safety.
For the good government and safety.
For the good of the rights and privileges of this ancient borough.
Of the rights and privileges of this ancient borough.
And the inhabitants thereof.
And the inhabitants thereof.
All these points and articles.
All these points and articles.
I shall well and truly observe and keep to the best of my skill.
I shall well and truly observe and keep to the best of my skill.
And according to the known laws, rules and customs.
And according to the known laws, rules and customs
of this ancient borough.
Of this ancient borough.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Councillor.
Thank
you. It gives me great pleasure to present this Award of Freedom of the Borough to Councillor Tim Hadland for the long service he has given to the people and the town of Northampton. Would you like to say a few words, Councillor?
Sorry?
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, and thank you to the Council for the honour that you've bestowed on me today. Thank you, Phil and Arthur, for your kind words. We were in the council chamber in May 1991, and I'm delighted to be able to celebrate that fact. Also, I should say it's a real pleasure to see Malcolm Lloyd, Richard Church and John Dickey at this meeting, because we were all around the same chamber those 30 years ago. Shortly after my election, I thought, paid the honour of becoming the opposition finance spokesman. And I was really quite chuffed that I should be promoted so early in my borough council career. This pitched me against the redoubtable Jeff Howes of blessed memory, a large man in every possible way. Far from being a compliment, I was actually being thrown to the lions. And people who are around in those times will know exactly what I meant. It really was an absolute baptism of fire. I suppose the only leavening experience was that it meant that we were both on the market liaison committee with the market traders, and we used to attend their annual general meeting, which in those days used to be at the Road Mender, and the bar was open specially, and we came on as a sort of council turn at the end, which became, on one occasion that I was there, a bit like a coconut shy with flying bread rolls, and certainly far more passion than we really expected to see in the borough. Happily, because I was opposition, I sat in the second row, and Jeff was a very big bloke. And so I positioned myself behind him, and for his size, I'm eternally grateful. Our leader subsequently made amends to me and put me on the board of the then Derngate Trust when that was first created. And I served there and with its successor for a total of 20 years. 20 wonderful, wonderful years, which I shall always treasure. Politics has been up and down during the 30 years, and Phil has touched on the solo effort between 1995 and 1999. A leak-proof, really dissension-proof group with no sign of coups or any such things that larger organizations would have. I was put on all the main committees, and the Labour administration were at pains to say that this was out of kindness. But I have to say that I always had a sneaking suspicion that if you're the only representative of the then party of government, it's no fun shouting and ranting at the party of government if you haven't got a representative round the table with you to rant and shout at. So I was something of a coconut shy during that time as well. Later, things got better. And as Phil has also touched on, for the last 10 years, I've been able to be really involved in my true love, which is making the physical manifestation of the town a better place for everybody. And we've had a certain amount of success with that. It is one of the, I think, well, misfortunes of any sort of life like this, that when you're dealing with long-term projects, the thing to do is to be in at the finish, because that's when you crack open the champagne and everyone has a party. So it will be for others, I think, to crack open the champagne and to have all the parties in the future. But I should be able to watch from the sidelines and enjoy seeing the town steadily improve. You don't do any of this without the support of, well, first of all, the voters have got to get you in, and one should never forget them for one moment in a political career, because they can put you up and they can very quickly take you down again, as many people know. I've had terrific political support throughout that time, and I've also had all along support from my wife of 51 years and counting, Jilly. During our mayoral year in 2001-2, she accompanied me on over 300 engagements. And that was at a time when we were both working, me full-time and her part-time, in a medical practice. And those were wonderful times to see the absolute best of Northampton and what it has to offer to us. We spend a lot of time knocking seven bells out of each other politically, and to have a year when you can put all that behind you and celebrate successes of organizations that you didn't even know existed right across the borough is a wonderful, wonderful experience. And by being there, you can, to some extent, show to all those organizations that the town really appreciates them and what they do. And that really was terrific fun. I've talked about the regeneration projects and things like that. One thing that gives me particular pleasure is rather different facet of life, and that is John Clare. Some years ago, I saw a little watercolor in County Hall of John Clare sitting in one of the niches in the portico in All Saints Church. And at that time, I was going on holiday to Cornwall regularly, and around Truro and that area, there were life-size sculptures in everyday settings. Fishermen sitting on garden seats, a sailor hanging over the rail of the King Harry ferry, and all things like that. And I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could get that chap to do us a John Clare? It didn't come off at that time, but many years later, I was able to pull it together, not in the originally proposed location, but sitting on a seat in the Guildhall courtyard, where he very quickly made a lot of friends and was really great fun, to the extent that one fan loved him so much that he wanted to take him home with him, and very nearly succeeded. And that provided the catalyst for all the sculptures that we now have around the Guildhall courtyard, commemorating great people with Northampton connections. And to see that and the pleasure that it gives people really leaves me with a very warm feeling indeed. And with regrets, of course, apart from the obvious one, I regret the passing of what used to be the committee system, where we all saw much more of each other across the parties, got to know each other much more as individuals, and socialized more, cricket matches, bowls matches, drinks after a meeting and things like that. And that, I think, enabled us all to pull together to better the lives of the people of the town. The cabinet structure, although I've been a beneficiary of it, I think to some extent dissipates that, and also takes a lot of the fun out of local politics and council life. Fun is not a word you hear very often in a council context these days, and I think that is a pity. So I think my advice for the future would be try and have more fun and try and all get to know each other and what makes other people tick much better. So I thank you, Mayor, for this wonderful honour, the Deputy Mayor. I can now retire from the council and morph into what I see as my retirement role as Mr. Grumpy of Duston. Many thanks indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Handlin. Congratulations. I now call upon Councillor Tony Ansell to present Councillor Phil Larratt for the conferment of freedom of the borough. Councillor Ansell.
Madam Deputy Mayor, fellow councillors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to propose Councillor Larratt for the honour of freedom of Northampton. He follows in the footsteps of many illustrious recipients of this award, including Northamptonshire's very own Princess Lady Diana, 32 years ago, who was presented with this award in the Guildhall's council chamber, for which Councillor Larratt was in attendance. I've been a councillor for the past decade, worked closely with Councillor Larratt, who is the longest serving councillor that we have on the borough. A few years ago, when I was having a luncheon celebration after being elected to Deputy Mayor, I made a speech and referred to him as the father of the council chamber, as whenever I've been in a spot of bother with the council, which, as many of you know, is more often than it is always to him that I turn for his words of wisdom. He has certainly guided me and many other councillors over the years. When I was given the huge honour of becoming the mayor in 2018, I couldn't think of anyone more fitting to ask to propose me, and I only hope that I can return the favour by doing him justice today. Having been born on the 11th of May 1957 at the Barratt Maternity Home, he began his educational journey at Cedar Road before attending St Matthew's Junior and Cherry Orchard Secondary Modern Schools, and completing his education at Weston Fable Upper School in 1973. Councillor spent his informative years in Phippsville and Hardingstone, and had continued to live and work in the town. He started his career as a civil servant before going on to take an early retirement after working for the Health and Safety Executive at Brackmills in 2011. Councillor Larratt is a true Northamptonian who holds his hometown dear to his heart and has had the honour of representing the residents of East Tunsbury. and Collentry Park on the Borough Council, and the residents of Collentry Village, Great Houghton, Hardingstone, Simpson Manor, Wootton Fields, and the County Council, on the County Council. He works closely with the parish councils covering these areas. Over the past 38 years, he has been a councillor for 34 of them. He was first elected as a Northampton Borough Councillor representing St George's Ward from 1983 to 1985. He was then elected to represent East Hunsbury in 1999, then became the Northamptonshire County Councillor for Nen Valley in 2009. He then went to become the chairman of the County Council in 2015, where he's a fellow patron of the Caring and Sharing Trust, at which he raised a large amount of money for his chosen charity. And I always felt honoured to be invited to accompany him at some of the various events he attended during his year of office, including a Buckingham Palace garden party. Within his time at the Borough Council, Councillor Lowett has been the leader, the deputy leader, the leader of the opposition, the portfolio holder, chairman of committees. In fact, there is a few roles that he has not undertaken, and he also attends almost every civic event. There is no denying that he is a well-experienced and trusted individual within the council. He has been involved in Conservative politics in Northampton for many years, serving in numerous roles within local Conservative associations. He has worked closely with various MPs through the years, as a campaign manager for the former MP for Northampton North, Tony Marlow, from 1981 to 1993, and Northamptonshire South MP, Andrew Letson. He's a former chairman of Northampton South Conservatives and was an officer of South Northamptonshire Conservatives. Building himself into somebody who is revered in the political landscape within the borough of Northampton, and as a strong Eurosceptic and Brexiteer, he's always been involved with various campaign groups regarding European issues. Highlighting the fierce pride for Northampton, he is a keen supporter of the Saints and enjoys the beautiful views of the Northamptonshire countryside. He's also a supporter of Formula One, a fan of real ale, and renowned for his love of gin and Jameson Irish whiskey. For many years, it has always been a tradition for Councillor Larrett to invite me around to his house for a few drinks on Christmas Day. I always have fond memories of his beloved late mother joining in the festivities with the other guests in front of the roaring log fire. Councillor Larrett has always shown great dedication to his political side of the council. Whilst he has always been a fierce debater with the opposition parties in the chamber, I hope we can all agree that he has always been fair and passionate in his views. As you all know, he gets on well with all councillors, whichever party they're from. Well, nearly all of them. So as we come to the twilight days of the Northampton Borough Council, I am delighted that this most prestigious honour of the freedom of the Borough of Northampton that is about to have bestowed on him in return for his long, outstanding and exemplary service to this town. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ansell. I now call upon Councillor Eldridge to support the conferment of freedom of the borough on Councillor Phil Larrett. Councillor Eldridge.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'm just, obviously, Councillor Ansell is a superb speaker, and it's going to be hard to follow his words of Councillor Larrett this evening. But I'm going to focus more on me personally knowing Phil. I've known Phil for since 1977, when my family moved into the same road as Phil, and we made a grand entrance into the road with my dad's van. And Mrs. Larrett, his mum, always used to mention it to my mother, that that van's very loud at 5:30 in the morning. So we got to know the Larrett family very quickly as neighbours. So I had the privilege of meeting Mrs. Larrett very early on, when I was only about 5, actually. So I'm bragging about my age here. But in 1987, Phil was, we got to know, obviously over the years, we got to know Phil very well as a family. And Phil helped me and my family in 1987 when my nan was having issues in a council flat she was living in. Phil was very helpful and helped my nan actually move closer to us in Kingsley. And so we could be closer to our nan to make sure she was happy in her last few days or last few years, sorry, of her being alive. And if it wasn't for Phil, she wouldn't have had the happier memories that she had in her later life without his help. And, you know, our family are always indebted to Phil and for his help that he showed towards our family at that time. Hence why in 1987, I actually started helping the Conservative Party because of Phil. And he still owes me about 5 pairs of shoes delivering his leaflets over the years, especially I think me and ex-councillor Barry Massey, where he told us both, if we want to win Parklands, we've got to go out every night canvassing. So we did. And I don't think me and Barry have ever forgiven for that, because that was 6 months hard slog knocking on every single door. So cheers to that one, Phil. You really, actually, I lost a lot of weight then, so that was quite helpful as well. So, yeah, no. So again, so coming back to obviously Highfield Road, I've got a lot of fond memories of living next door to Phil. We had some great times. We've got some great memories with the family, which, you know, and I know Mrs. Larratt will be looking down on you today, Phil. So that's my boy. I'm very proud of him, because she always had an apple in her eye for you, mate. And I'm sure she'll be looking down, smiling this evening, thinking there's nobody more dedicated and more who doesn't really deserve this any more than Councillor Phil Larratt to this evening. Obviously, Phil, I remember Phil one day as well standing in front of the Cobblers on TV. I think it was in the early 2000s. He's the only bloke I know that can stand in front of the Sixfield Stadium talking about Northampton Town Football Club with a Saints tie on. So he's the only person I know could have got away with that one. And he was the talk of the town at the time, saying, why was he wearing a Saints tie when really he should have been wearing a Cobblers one? But that was Phil for you. He was a dedicated Saints man. He still is and always will be, but he was always a big follower of all our sports clubs in Northampton. As Councillor Ansell has already spoke about, Phil is a seasoned campaigner. He's had many, many, many campaigns. He's run for various MPs in the town. And, you know, they've all been privileged enough to have him working alongside them. I had a couple of big serious campaigns with Tony Marlowe in 97, which weren't a great year for the Conservatives. It was a bit of as everybody knows, a bit of a headache for all of us. But, you know, Phil ran a fantastic campaign in difficult circumstances, and I had the privilege of working alongside him to make sure the campaign ran smoothly. But I'll bring it back to basically 2009 and 10 when we both worked for Andrea Leadsom. We ran a really good campaign that year, but it was all the determination and willpower from Phil that got us over the line there, because it was just the three of us campaigning tirelessly every week trying to get Andrea elected. So, you know, this is the man we're talking about, Phil Larratt. He's a dedicated campaigner, dedicated Conservative, but more importantly, a dedicated man to Northampton. And Phil, you know, Phil had some issues with his health a few years back now, and this is how dedicated this man is, and this is why he deserves it more than anybody I know. He was lying in his hospital bed. I've just come back from holiday. I've just found out he's in there. I rushed straight down there to see if he was okay. And the first thing he turned around to me, he said, Brandon, make sure these residents get all this help they need while I'm in here. And if you need me, let me know and I'll make a few calls. This is how dedicated this man is to Northampton. And I don't think there's anybody anywhere that can disagree with this honour tonight for Councillor Phil Larratt. You know, he's claret, white and through. He's red, white and black. He's red, yellow and black all the way through as well. And he's a steel backs now and again. So, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, I have the privilege of seconding Councillor Ansell on the nomination for the Freedom of Borough for Councillor Phil Larratt this evening, as Mr. Northampton, as I would call him.
Thank you, Councillor Eldridge. Councillor Larratt, please repeat after me. I, Phil Larratt, swear to be good and true.
I, Phil Larratt, swear to be good and true.
To our Sovereign Lady, the Queen.
To our Sovereign Lady, the Queen.
And her heirs and lawful successors.
And her heirs and lawful successors.
Obedient to the Mayor of this ancient borough for the time being.
Obedient to the Mayor of this ancient borough for the time being.
And obey mayoral warrants, precepts and commands.
And obey mayoral warrants, precepts and commands.
The freedoms, usages and customs of this ancient borough.
The freedoms, usages and customs of this ancient borough.
I shall well and truly maintain and uphold.
I shall well and truly maintain and uphold.
I shall keep the Queen's peace in my own person.
I shall keep the Queen's peace in my own person.
And shall know no conventicles or conspiracies.
And shall know no conventicles or conspiracies.
Made against the Queen's peace.
Made against.
But I shall forthwith warn the mayor or mayor's officials thereof.
But I shall forthwith warn the mayor or mayor's officials thereof.
And I shall, as much as lies in my power.
And I shall, as much as lies in my power,
contribute and do every act and thing.
Contribute and do every act and thing.
For the good government and safety.
For the good government and safety.
Of the rights and privileges of this ancient borough.
Of the rights and privileges of this ancient borough.
And the inhabitants thereof.
And the inhabitants thereof.
All these points and articles.
All these points and articles.
I shall well and truly observe and keep to the best of my skill.
I shall well and truly observe and keep to the best of my skill.
And according to the known laws, rules and customs.
And according to the known laws, rules and customs.
Of this ancient borough.
Of this ancient borough.
So help me God.
So help me God.
It gives me great pleasure to present this award of freedom of the borough to Councillor Phil Larratt for the long service he has given to the people and town of Northampton. Councillor Larratt, would you like to, congratulations, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. Can I thank the council for this great honour, and in particular, can I thank my friends Tony Ansell and Brandon Eldridge for their wonderful words this evening. I was wondering who they were talking about actually, but there you go. But more importantly than anything, Madam Deputy Mayor, I want to thank the residents of St George Ward and East Hunsbury Ward for placing their trust in me to represent them for 34 years of the last, for 34 years out of the last 38 years. It's been a privilege to be a member of this council for 34 years. In fact, it's actually 34 years out of the 47 years of the council's existence. And it's been a work with so many people. I particularly thank constituents over the years, and I think the best part of this job, or the best aspect of this job, is representing our constituents, resolving their problems and being successful on their behalf. I think Councillor Eldridge has mentioned a particular case, and it's those sorts of cases that really give you satisfaction and show that you can actually work for the benefit of the people. It's been a real privilege to serve people. But like others have already said, Madam Deputy Mayor, it wouldn't be possible to do what we do without the support of officers. And I have to say that I've been pleased and very gratified to work with so many dedicated professional officers throughout my period of time on this council. Some very interesting characters as well. For example, one of George's predecessors, Alan Parkhouse, a great character, used to love his 6 pints of director's ale in the mail coach at 5:30 every evening. How he lasted through council meetings at the time, I don't know, but I always thought he had a bottle under the seat. But you know, some really interesting characters we've worked with. Great planning officers such as Roy Talbot and David Watt, and we've had some interesting times with Alan Maskell when he was held hostage by poll tax protesters in Cliftonville. So, you know, it's certainly been an interesting time. There is just one person I wish to thank, although there's many, you know, I should thank, but I would like to thank Caroline Burke for all her help and support over the years. When I became leader of the council, the leader didn't even have support as such, and I was asked if wanted some support, and of course I said please, please, and who would you like? And I said, well, the person who's done a really fantastic job is Caroline down in Westbridge, working in environment services, and she reluctantly came up to the Guildhall as leader support, and she's done a fantastic job, not just serving me but other leaders as well throughout her time in that office where she still is, and I wish her well in the new authority. It's great to have somebody who's so dedicated and helpful. As I say, it's been a really interesting time. It's been fun. I mean, if I hadn't enjoyed it, I wouldn't have kept coming back. And it's great to see, as Tim said, it's great to see Malcolm and John and Richard here tonight. It's a long time, and you know, we all had some good times together. I mean, I remember the Northampton show lunch, and Councillor Rita Cumberpatch and Dominic Brown, and I always got into trouble because, along with Jeff Howes and Trevor Bailey, we used to hide the bottles of wine under the table and have a really enjoyable afternoon and end up at a group meeting at night, which became quite hilarious. But yeah, we used, those were the days. We had some fun, and we still do. But as Councillor says, this recent year has stopped us enjoying a few drinks together after meetings and things, but hopefully those days will return. As I say, Madam Deputy Mayor, it's been a great privilege. I thank the council, I thank Brandon and Tony, and I particularly thank the people of St George Wood and East Tunsbury. And I thank all the officers who've been so helpful in resolving issues and delivering projects throughout my time on the council. So thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Larratt. Congratulations. I now call upon Councillor Stone to present the Sikh community for the conferment of freedom of the borough. Councillor Stone.
With very great pleasure, Madam Deputy Mayor. I've been working with and associated with the Sikh community in Northampton for over 20 years now. My first involvement with the Sikh community was when I worked at the county and I supported their supplementary school. And I have to say, their supplementary school was one of the best run, the best managed, with the best teachers that I have ever seen. And I've worked with lots and lots of supplementary schools. They took advantage of every training opportunity, every course that was going to improve their skills for their children and for the parents in their community. And we're one of the first supplementary schools to get national accreditation. So I remember all of that very, very fondly indeed. But they didn't just run a supplementary school, they ran lots and lots of events and still do for the youth. And it's always been a great pleasure to see how the Sikh community has mentored and encouraged the youth in their community to become the very, very best that they can. And they've also done things like put in community well-being strategies for the people in their community. And that has been really, really well received as well. One of the things that I've really loved getting to know the Sikh community is about their heritage. And I think they're the first community group that I've ever known. There may be others, but they're the first I've ever known that have developed their own archives and made them accessible to their community and to people beyond their community. It's an absolute pleasure to see the archives that they've got, their heritage, their artifacts, and the texts that go with them that they have developed for all of us to enjoy and to increase our awareness and understanding of Sikh history. It's just been an absolute pleasure. But how extraordinary then that this community, given the very, very difficult times we've been living in, where money is really short, we're seeing lots and lots of projects coming to a halt. We're seeing lots of businesses go to the wall through adversity, through austerity, through really difficult times. How extraordinary that this community has been able to build a new Gurdwara in the St. James Mills area and bring it to a successful fruition. It is absolutely amazing and a tribute to the dedication and commitment of their community and their ability to work together and to pull lots and lots of rabbits out of lots and lots of hats. Extraordinary achievement for all of them. One of the things that's really important about that is that it gives them a huge base to do lots of the other work that they do so well. So the spiritual mentoring and guidance within the community. I've been lucky to have been able to attend some of their services and some of their events at the Gurdwara, and I can see the impact that that has within the community. And it is amazing as well that they are always ready to invite other people in to share those experiences, and I value that very much indeed. But they go much further, and we all know them for that, don't we? Because their community outreach is absolutely second to none. And we know that their dedication to the poor, their dedication to the homeless, their dedication to making sure that the hungry get fed has been an absolute phenomenon in the town over many, many, many years. And being able to sustain that level of community outreach and community engagement is absolutely incredible and is a real tribute to that community. And I would like to thank them very, very much for that, because it isn't just the people that receive their targeted support that have benefited, but the whole of the town. I'm sure everybody would agree, has benefited from that extraordinary effort that they make there. So it is with really great pleasure that I propose that the Sikh community have the freedom of the borough. And in concluding, I would like to commend to the town the saying that is on the website, and it's this: building a fantastic future is a lot easier if you ask the people who will be a part of it. I think that is absolutely wonderful. And it is a real demonstration of what our Sikh community is all about and what they offer this town. Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. I now call upon Councillor Nunn to support the conferment of freedom of the borough on the Sikh community. Councillor Nunn.
Well, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and I'm absolutely delighted to support this. The Sikh community's work in our town is well known. I think for me, I most particularly became more aware of it when I took this job on 4.5 years ago. And I remember fairly early in that stage meeting at the night shelter Amajit, who's here representing the Sikh community, and to learn of the huge contribution they had made to that particular venture that brought so much kindness to those who most needed it. And I think that perhaps is the hallmark for which this community is known in the town. Their street food project is reliable and persistent and sustained. It's relentless in seeking to support people when they need it most, to offer warmth, sustenance and compassion. Like you, I think it's extraordinary to have built the Gurdwara, the temple and community facility, in addition to at the same time make a huge contribution to those that need help and support in our town. And we know that that effort has increased significantly by the Sikh community during COVID. This time has been a time in which they have been a vital part of that support across the whole of our community. I think this community, the Sikh community, is an important part of our community, but is known specifically across the town for the contribution that it makes. And there is no doubt that our town is richer for their kindness, their care, and their generosity. So it gives me great pleasure, therefore, to support the proposal that they've given the freedom of the Borough of Northampton. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nunn. Amajit Atwal, please repeat after me. I, Amajit Atwal,
I, Amajit Atwal,
on behalf of the Sikh community,
on
swear
behalf
to
of the,
be good and true
on behalf of the Sikh community, swear to be good and true
to our Sovereign Lady, the Queen,
to our Sovereign Lady, the Queen,
and her heirs and lawful successors,
and her heirs and lawful successors,
obedient to the Mayor of this ancient borough for the time being,
obedient to the Mayor of this ancient borough for the time being,
and obey mayoral warrants, precepts, and commands,
and obey mayoral warrants, precepts, and commands,
the freedoms, usages, and customs of this ancient borough,
the freedoms, usages, and customs of this ancient borough.
I shall well and truly maintain and uphold.
I shall well and truly maintain and uphold.
I shall keep the Queen's peace in my own person.
I shall keep the Queen's peace in my own person.
And shall know no conventicles or conspiracies.
And shall know no conventicles or conspiracies.
Made against the Queen's peace.
Made against the Queen's peace.
But I shall forthwith warn the Mayor or Mayor's officials thereof.
But I shall forthwith warn the Mayor or the Mayor's officials thereof.
And I shall, as much as lies in my power.
And I shall, as much as lies in my power.
Contribute and do every act and thing.
Contribute and do every act and thing.
For the good government and safety.
For the good government and safety.
Of the rights and privileges of this ancient borough.
Of the rights and privileges of this ancient borough.
And the inhabitants thereof.
And the inhabitants thereof.
All these points and articles.
All these points and articles.
I shall well and truly observe and keep to the best of my skill.
I shall well and truly observe and keep to the best of my skill.
And according to the known laws, rules, and customs.
And according to the known laws, rules, and customs.
Of this ancient borough.
Of this ancient borough.
So help me God.
So help me God.
It gives me great pleasure to present this award of Freedom of the Borough to the Sikh community for the long service it has given to the people and town of Northampton. Amajit, would you like to say a few words?
Yep, thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. The Sikh Community Centre and Youth Club, along with the Siri Guru Singh Sabha Northampton, are delighted to receive this prestigious award of Freedom of the Borough. Both charities for decades have provided support services to the wider residents of Northampton. The charities have been consistent and at the forefront throughout the pandemic in providing poverty services such as a food bank, which has been supporting individuals, families and school children, a hot meal provision for the town's rough sleeper community. Other services include support for victims of domestic abuse, health and wellbeing sessions, language classes, training and employment support, youth engagement programs, heritage and art space, creating volunteering opportunities and a place for spiritual worship. We would also like to congratulate Northampton General Hospital, Councillor Sally Beardsworth, Councillor Tim Hadland and Councillor Phil Larratt, and take this opportunity to thank those who nominated for this award, our partners, supporters, donors, funders, and all our staff and volunteers who deliver these vital services. Thank you again, Deputy Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I now call upon Councillor Lane to present Northampton General Hospital for the conferment of Freedom of the Borough. Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Thank you indeed. We've heard many stories tonight about members' 30 years loyal service to the town, all summed up in a few glorious minutes, and I congratulate them all. My task this evening is gigantic. Where do you start with an organisation that has served our town since 1744 and has played a part in all our lives? Like Hospital Street, I could go on forever, but I'd be sure to miss a door, a department, or more importantly, a person. I'm very lucky. I can count on one hand my stays in Northampton General Hospital, but I know whenever I go in there to visit a friend or for treatment, you always are feeling nervous, and you're always put at ease by the wonderful staff there, and I thank them all. Now, Northampton General Hospital and the NHS locally have always been greatly valued by the town, and there can be very few residents who have not experienced and benefits from their care and highly professional medical assistance. So many of us will have experienced some of their most significant events in our own lives through Northampton General Hospital, be it family birth, the care in one's life, or the care that's been brought back from the pain, anxiety, illness to health. And our own member, Councillor Meredith, has recently been through Northampton General Hospital with that awful COVID. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has given more clarity than ever over the dedication, compassion and expertise that Northampton is fortunate to have available to us through Northampton General Hospital. Therefore, in recognition of the continual service that Northampton General Hospital provides the town, and particularly the extraordinary bravery and dedication shown by the NHS heroes during the past year, it is the Council's wish to bestow on Northampton General Hospital its highest honour, being the freedom of the Borough of Northampton. I have great pleasure to propose the conferment of the freedom of the Borough of Northampton on Northampton General Hospital and all of its staff, and I thank them all very much for their dedicated work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I now call upon Councillor Birch to support the conferment of the freedom of the Borough on Northampton General Hospital. Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Well, I'm also absolutely delighted to be able to second the granting of the honorary freedom of the Borough of Northampton to Northampton General Hospital. This is in recognition of the invaluable service, the care and the compassion and the expert skills they provided the residents of Northampton and elsewhere, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, the pandemic is not over, and after a year of unimaginable physical and emotional pressures, the staff, every one of them, the nurses, the doctors, the cleaners, the porters, the catering staff, maintenance teams and administration are still there, taking care of the desperately ill patients. They never signed it up for this, and they have all responded heroically. You deserve the highest honour the borough can give you. It is a measure of the debt we all owe you for taking care of our families, our friends, and our neighbours. We thank you all. I have the great pleasure to support the granting of the freedom of the Borough of Northampton to Northampton General Hospital. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Eileen Doyle, please repeat after me. I, Eileen Doyle, on behalf of Northampton General Hospital.
I, Eileen Doyle, on behalf of Northampton General Hospital.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I, Eileen Doyle, on behalf of Northampton General Hospital.
Swear to be good and true.
Swear to be good and true.
To our Sovereign Lady the Queen.
To our Sovereign Lady the Queen.
And her heirs and lawful successors.
And her heirs and lawful successors.
Obedient to the Mayor of this ancient borough for the time being.
Obedient to the Mayor of this ancient borough for the time being.
And obey mayoral warrants precepts and commands,
and obey mayoral warrants, precepts and commands,
the freedoms, usages and customs of this ancient borough,
the freedoms, usages and customs of this ancient borough.
I shall well and truly maintain and uphold.
I shall well and truly maintain and uphold.
I shall keep the Queen's peace in my own person.
I shall keep the Queen's peace in my own person.
And shall know no conventicles or conspiracies.
And shall know no conventicles or conspiracies.
Made against the Queen's peace.
Made against the Queen's peace.
But I shall forthwith warn the mayor or mayor's officials thereof.
But I shall forthwith warn the mayor or mayor's officials thereof.
And I shall, as much as lies in my power.
And I shall, as much as lies in my power.
Contribute and do every act and thing.
Contribute and do every act and thing.
For the good government and safety.
For the good government and safety.
Of the rights and privileges of this ancient borough.
Of the rights and privileges of this ancient borough.
And the inhabitants thereof.
And the inhabitants thereof.
All these points and articles.
All these points and articles.
I shall well and truly observe and keep to the best of my skill.
I shall well and truly observe and keep to the best of my skill.
And according to the known laws, rules and customs.
And according to the known laws, rules and customs.
Of this ancient borough.
Of this ancient borough.
So help me God.
So help me God.
It gives me great pleasure to present this award of Freedom of the Borough to Northampton General Hospital in recognition of the invaluable work that NGH staff has provided during the COVID-19 pandemic. Eileen, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and thank you everybody for this amazing honour. On behalf of all the staff and volunteers, all 5,500 of them at NGH, we are really humbled by this recognition and are grateful for your continued and unrelenting support. It's been the most extraordinary year, actually. In many decades of working in the health service, I don't think certainly most of my colleagues have ever seen anything like it. And the response from staff across the country, but also, in particular MGH, of course, I would say that has been amazing. People coming into work every day, no matter what their own personal circumstances, hardships, or actually general fear about COVID itself. It has been an amazing response, and they continue with that very same courage each day. It is many of our staff have been affected themselves, lost loved ones, lost businesses, had to go through the pain of homeschooling, which was almost as bad for many. But they continue to come into work with a smile on their face, and we continue to manage COVID on a daily basis. So they will be thrilled with this honour. And we are very privileged to be here and very privileged to serve Northampton. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Eileen. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Before we move on to item 8, I'd like to conclude Freedom of the Borough. That in pursuance of section 2495 of the Local Government Act 1972, this council do hereby bestow the honorary freeman of the Borough of Northampton upon Councillors Sally Bearsworth, Tim Hadland, Phil Larratt, and Community Seat Group in appreciation and recognition of their contribution to the life of the borough during their time as elected members of Northampton Borough Council, and to Northampton General Hospital in recognition of the invaluable work that NGH staff provided during the COVID-19 pandemic. That the common seal of the council be affixed to the scroll recording such admission. That the names of Sally Bearsworth, Tim Hadland, Phil Larratt, Seat Community Group, and Northampton General Hospital be entered in the roll of the honorary freeman of Northampton. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. I now call upon Councillor Lane to propose and Councillor Birch to second. Vote of thanks to outgoing Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've known Brian and Ray for many, many years, and I know what an honour it was for Brian to become our Mayor of Northampton. I also know the disappointment he has in not being able to get out into the community and to meet all those wonderful groups that make our town what it is. When I was there last week, he didn't want any thanks for the year. He felt that it's not been a good year for anybody. And he says he wasn't putting himself first at all. He said he didn't win for it. But I think Brian has done an absolute marvellous job, not only the way he conducts meetings with the technology, with the Zoom meetings. And I know Brian represented himself knowing he was the last mayor of the borough of Northampton, but also the first virtual mayor. And I know he'll be pleased with those accolades in the history books of our town. He's supported by the wonderful Ray. And again, it's a disappointment that the town didn't see her wonderful character. And there's so many things they would have got involved with. But they have been a tremendous Zoom, virtual mayoress, our first. Let's certainly hope not the last. Because I think now we can do things via technology. We can actually spread our wings and visit more groups and organisations that are going to be doing their business and meetings on Zoom. So it gives me tremendous pleasure to give the thanks to the outgoing Mayor and Mayoress, Councillor Brian Sargent, and his Mayoress Ray Sargent Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Birch to second.
Thank you. I'm really honoured to be asked to second the vote of thanks for the outgoing Mayor, Brian Sargent and Mayoress Ray Sargent. If we look back on this mayoral year, the word that springs to mind is probably challenging. It's been a year like no other, completely unprecedented and without the usual events and ceremonies associated with the mayoral role. And I know that both Ray and Brian were looking forward so much to getting involved in every aspect of the town's life. However, I can think of no better couple to rise to these challenges. Brian and Ray have brought their inimitable style, zest for life, and sense of humour to all occasions. Their love of life and their love of Northampton and interest in all our residents and organisations has shone through the worry and anxiety of the pandemic. The choice of the mayor's, my thing's going wrong. The choice for the mayor's charity, the Lowdown, is an example of this. The Lowdown is an organisation which offers free counselling. It offers advice and support to young people. Its work is so much more needed in these difficult times. And Brian acknowledged this and continued to support it, having been the Lowdown being supported during his deputy mayor year, when he attended many events along with the current mayor at the time. Councillor Brian Sargent will go down in history, as Councillor Lane has said, as the last mayor of Northampton Borough and the first to have conducted many of his events and meetings virtually via Zoom. And I wish them both the very best for the future, and we will remember them with great, great affection for the roles that they've undertaken and for the roles that they could have undertaken. They'll be there in our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. I know Councillor Sargent wanted to be here today, but unfortunately he was unable to. But I would like to thank Councillor Sargent and Ray Sargent Kelly for the able and courteous manner in which they have discharged their duties as Mayor and Mayoress during their term of office. Thank you. Is everyone in favour?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, we're going over to the video link now of Councillor Sargent.
It's with my deepest regrets that I cannot attend this last meeting of our beloved Borough Council. A medical appointment has me unable to attend, even virtually. And we all know what it is like with medical appointments. They are too valuable, and we all know why. Because of this crisis we are in presently. Honours today distributed to fellow members for long service, to the community groups. This could never be as far and as wide as we would like this honour to be, due to the many citizens who have shone so brightly during this pandemic. There are simply too many heroes to honour. One of our Freedom of Borough honours, the highest honour a council can bestow, goes to Northampton General Hospital. They have led this way for our town. They have saved countless lives and worked tirelessly since this time last year, and we cannot thank them and their staff's devotion to their duty enough. Our thanks goes to consultants and surgeons, doctors and nurses and cleaners and porters, the cooks, the clerical staff, every member that's played a part in saving many lives and do so day on day. So thank you. Do not forget, the National Health Service is a team. We include our thanks to every member. I've never, as Mayor, sat in the Mayor's chair in this session in the Guildhall, looking over the mace, being able to have eye contact with my fellow members. I've not had Chief Executive George Candler by my side to advise me. Everybody was on a high diving board for our first virtual meeting. We just did not know what to expect. This was more than difficult for our officers to adopt this new procedure, and we cannot praise our officers enough. I would like to thank my dedicated team, my civic officer, Elizabeth, my driver and mace bearer, Dave Peach, and driver, Abdul Hamid, who have supported me tirelessly throughout this difficult year. My charity, The Lowdown, has suffered alongside the rest of us. It's been a terrible year for us to raise funds for them. Don't forget, there are still tickets for my fundraising history talk on Friday. Just email mayor@northampton.gov.co for tickets and have a look at my Facebook. I don't want to speak too much on the disappointments of my mayoral term. We've all suffered in one way or another this year. We must all consider us here fortunate that we're here, that we continue, and hopefully our normal lives will resume in the not too distant future. Going forward, Northampton has a bright future with our new town council, continuing the Mayoralty and the Unity Council of North and West Northants. This is a brand new chapter for our town and county. I want to offer my best wishes to each and every one of us for the future. I want to thank you for the privilege of my term of office. I am honoured to hand over my mayoralty to the brand new first Mayor of Northampton Town Council, to the more than qualified Councillor Rafia Ashraf. I've always admired Councillor Ashraf. I admire and respected her as a fellow councillor for the last 10 years. Congratulations on her new role. I also congratulate her dynamic Deputy Mayor, Councillor Dennis Meredith. I leave you now my family motto, which can be found in All Saints Church on the family memorials. Go, do likewise. I thank you all.
That was wonderful. Now we'll go to item 9, addresses from past members. I now invite Malcolm Lloyd to address the council. You're on mute, Malcolm. You're still on mute. You're still on mute, Malcolm. Okay. Okay. The joys of technology. Shall I move on to John? Yeah.
Malcolm, it should be up at the top on your screen where it shows black. Just press the unmute button. No.
Yeah. Shall we move on to John Dickey, and we'll wait for Malcolm to come back to us. I invite John Dickey to address the council. John. Do you mute? You're on mute, John.
Hello?
Hello, John.
Oh, at last. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. You know, I've been sitting here for nearly a couple of hours. When I started here, I was feeling I was old. Having heard the word ancient so often, I now actually feel more than old. I feel ancient. And when I see the boy Larratt become an honorary freeman, I remember when he was a young stripling of a boy. I really am old. I really am ancient. Indeed, it's I feel if you're still here, now that you've joined the clan, I nearly said, now you've joined the club, we can go to the Parkhouse Arms when this is all over and find a few conventicles. I've always wanted to find a conventicle. Oh, is that you, Phil? No. Who is it? Okay.
I look forward to it, John. I look forward to it.
Yeah, well, we could all go. There's 5 of us now. When I first joined the council, I joined in 1973. I joined a shadow administration. The old county borough was going, and central government decided on a 2-tier system, and we were the 2nd tier. It was, I fundamentally think it was a mistake. Can you hear me still?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. I keep seeing Phil Larratt's name come up, and I thought, my goodness, I've transmogrified into Phil. I think it was a mistake. I understood, and I still understand, there is a need to rationalize some of the functions of local government. But I think in 73, 74, it was done in such a haphazard way that we are still playing reorganization that didn't work. I saw only this week a few councillors in the Weedon Road were quite rightly complaining about the function of the county council in highways. I noticed some of the local complainants were complaining quite rightly about what does a guy from Higham Ferrers know about the Weedon Road? A very good question, because I bet none of us know what goes on in Higham Ferrers. I think that's part of the problem of reorganization. And it happened then, and it took a long time. It also coincided, and it's worth remembering this, that was at the height of the Northampton Development Corporation. And that's when Northampton, it was actually called a new town. And we were going through an enormous extension, which we used to call the Eastern District, that we now call East Northampton. And that really took a long time to settle down. I always admired the people of the Eastern District who came wondering what would happen, and the old folk of Northampton who, as some of you will know, are usually called Uckard, and the Uckard old people in Northampton. It seemed to weld together. But there was that dreadful period when we reduced our functions as a council. One of the things that saved us then was the sort of experience we had. I remember when I first joined as a callow youth, the sight of the Tory leader, the great memorable Jack Corrin, turning up to meetings in a bowler hat. He's the first person I'd ever seen in my life in a bowler hat. I was quite impressed. But we also had, as somebody mentioned it earlier, a really strong continuity among the senior officers. Alan Parkhouse, who guided us endlessly until the pubs opened. Alan was a remarkable chief executive, but he didn't like being called the chief executive. He wanted to, and he did, retain the title town clerk. I think that says a lot about what we were. The other thing I think we miss now, and we forget, and I think, Tim, you mentioned it, is the notion that we had a committee system. It worked. It worked in many sorts of ways. I don't think cabinet works. The reason I say it worked is because in committees, every single councillor had a function on the council, and every single councillor was able to participate in the work of the council, not as it is at the moment, an almost artificial construct of just a handful of people and everybody else being extras. That's, again, government interference. We didn't want it particularly, but it was a system that was imposed. One of the first and most interesting things I learned as a councillor was the significance of what committee you got on. When, again, I started, the most important committee to get on was housing. The actual senior committee of the council was called Policy and Resources, but it wasn't terribly exciting. But we did, in those days, our Labour group leader was a guy called Ron DeLay, who I learned a great deal from. And the first thing Ron did was to put his traditional or potentially young troublemakers on the Policy and Resources Committee. So that was Roger Winter, Janet Thomas, Tony Berry, and me. Some of the older members were really cross about that, but Ron was clever. He actually tamed us, and he kept us tamed for years. Housing was the big committee to go on. As you, Madam Deputy Mayor, will know, housing was a major function of the local authority. Roger Winter was our first chairman in '74, but it wasn't a one-party state. And subsequently, some very fine Conservative councillors took on the role of housing. I think immediately of Alwyn Hargrave, who I think was a remarkable inspiration in terms of housing. The other committee that always frightened me, and again, Tim mentioned it strangely enough, was the Finance Committee. It was seen as a quiet little retreating place. No, it wasn't. You didn't retreat onto finance, and certainly not when my late colleague Jeff Howes chaired it. Jeff was a fearsome man when it came. I mean, it was Phil who was talking about standing behind Jeff. I well know what that meant. When Jeff was actually chair of finance, every year he would take over an office in Cliftonville House, and for 2 weeks he would insist that every committee chairman and every chief officer would appear before him and his deputy, and we were grilled. I was leader of the council, and I had to go before his committee. Jeff knew all about the Star Chamber. He reinvented it in local government. But every single penny had to be accounted for. There was no way you could hide any money. There's no way you could do anything dodgy. Jeff was there. And it meant that we implemented our program because he made sure the budget fitted that. He also made sure that chief officers knew their limits, knew how far they could go. And do you know the price of all that? 2 weeks in Cliftonville House was a tray of bacon rolls every day. That's what the public of Northampton paid for. That's what they got. I'm proud, by the way, of what we did. We never always did things right. Not everything was done right. And my colleagues who've been in that position will know perfectly well that mistakes are made. But there was a sort of camaraderie. But we got things done. We carried on each other's projects and we instituted new ones. We instituted Sixfields, we instituted CCTV, much in the news today, but an extraordinary change in people's attitude because of the CCTV scheme. Single regeneration budget and the work we put in on the Derngate, which we inherited from the late Cyril Benton, and the Guildhall extension, which we inherited. Was it you, Tim? Probably. Again, everything comes back to one political theme: the interference of central government, of whichever colour, in what goes on in local government. And I'm afraid it's still going on. Let me make probably my only political point of the evening. And I know I'm famed for not making them, but I'll make a brief one. I believe that a number of national initiatives by central government destroyed the will of the council, not just this council, but other councils as well. I believe Northampton has had a very proud record in social housing. Look at some of the wonderful estates that were built in the 1930s. See how dominant it was. Social housing levels up. It doesn't level down. And of course, when the right to buy was introduced, let me remember which party did that, that started to lose the connection with the community. Other things, of course, a side effect of that, which people forget, is that when we had our own housing, we had a direct labour organisation, which if you went down to Westbridge, it was amazing. There were plumbers and carpenters and painters and all sorts of people, skilled men and women, doing skilled jobs. And they were also, by the way, training apprentices. That was a wonderful experience. Northampton Borough Council, like so many councils, was where much of the skilled workers in those industries were trained. That's something we lost. And the other thing, which I will say, just to warm people's hearts, we lost Northampton Transport. We were put into a situation where we had to deregulate. I knew I'd find a word. We had to deregulate our bus service. Northampton Town owned the bus company. It was a wonderful fleet. Phil will certainly remember the beautiful red Daimlers. We had to get rid of them. Because Nicholas really told us to. And so an important community asset was lost. I will, however, in our defense, say that the money that we got at the end, we were the last authority in Britain to get rid of our municipal undertaking. The money we got from selling that to the big boys, 5.5 million. Les Patterson, who was at the time chair of major projects, invested every penny into building Sixfields Stadium. So there are no debts on Sixfields Stadium when we built it, and the town didn't lose a penny, but it did lose its buses. I am worried about what's going to happen next. I believe Northampton has a future. I believe there is an almost exciting future, and that means rethinking about what our town is. I think that means it's got to be a visitor's town. It's got to be a place of tourism. It's got to be a place of heritage that we can look. If Leicester can find a king in the ground, for goodness sake, we must be able to find. Marie, by the way, thinks we could find Elphigou, who was the Queen of England at the time. I think Elphigou is here somewhere in Spring Burrows. But much that needs to be done has to be done in partnership. I'm not convinced that West Northampton, I hope it will, I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not convinced it will give us the partnership we need. So let me finish, Madam Deputy Mayor, on my biggest regret. We all have regrets. My biggest regret, and please, this is not confidential. Many years before when we first talked about a unitary Northampton, I was taken for a drink to, of all places, the Town and Country Club. I was Town and County, the Town and County Club. I was taken advice to Bill Morton, who was the leader of the Tories on the county. And Bill, over a couple of rather good whiskies, suggested that I agreed that the solution for Northampton and Northamptonshire was going back to the county borough, having the donut, having Northampton as a county borough with most of its services intact, and having the rest of the county do what it will. There was, however, objections to that. They came from the county council on both sides, who realised that they would lose their most valuable rateable asset, Northampton Borough, and they'd have to pay more money in their rates. And that was what we lost. That was what the rock that we perished on. We could have been a unitary now, but sadly, we're not. I hope the town council works to protect the heritage of the town. I think that's an important feature. But I hope within the next decade, people will realise a mistake's been made, and we will become once again, after 800 years, a proud unitary council. That's my wish. I hope I live long enough to see it. But if I've lived long enough to see Phil and Tim and Sally become free persons, so maybe that's not too far a dream far away.
Thank you, John. Thank you. That was a lovely reminiscence back in the days. Can I invite Malcolm Lloyd if he's back on the screen? Yes.
Go on, Harry, where do I do now?
Oh, there you are, Malcolm. Hello, we can hear you.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Madam Deputy Mayor, members of the council, I've been asked to recall 20 years of of being on the council. But I did that some 3 or 4 years ago when you made me an honorary alderman. I'll not bore you with that again or of a repeat performance. I'll be more interested to tell you of some of the special moments of my year as mayor, 1989 to 90, the 800th anniversary year of the granting of its charter by Richard I. As some of you will recall, it started fast and furiously. Within a fortnight of taking office, Her Royal Highness Diana, Princess of Wales, came to this very chamber, and we conferred upon her the honorary freedom of the borough. The town was bursting at the seams just to get a look and a photo of her. She was stunning as usual. That day she became Northampton's very own princess. After the ceremony, she retired to the mayor's parlour with Prince Charles. And as I entered the parlour, the princess was waving a bottle of gin from the cabinet. "Come in, Mr. Mayor," she said. "You look as though you could do with a drink." And I could. Before leaving the town, she spent the next hour or so walking down Guildhall Road to the museum, and then to Derngate Theater, and then back up, talking to the townsfolk, or as she went. I have a copy of that oath, signed by the princess and myself, and it hangs on my dining room wall, alongside the painting by Julia Brennan, capturing the main characters in the chamber that day. I had the pleasure of meeting the princess on another occasion in the town, but on a much more informal level. It was the interval of Swan Lake at Derngate. I asked her if she was returning to Kensington Palace after the performance. Yes, she said. There's a helicopter waiting at Wootton Hall. I should be glad to get to bed, but I suppose the two boys will keep me awake all night fidgeting. At that moment, her father, Earl Spencer, joined us. Anne and I made to move away, but no, she said, I can talk to Daddy anytime. Treasured moments. November the 18th was the day of the civic service at All Saints Church to commemorate the granting of the Charter. After the service, we came out onto the portico. That's when the bells from the churches around the town began to ring and continued all day. I would like to mention my appeal to plant 800 oak trees to commemorate 800 years. There is a huge leather-bound book at the Records Office, Wootton Hall, that has recorded every subscriber, some 836 from all around the world. They are planted at Delapre in the one large group known as Charter Wood. I have to thank my wife Anne for thinking of that fantastic idea. Perhaps the book could come to the Guildhall at some time and put in a glass cabinet for the subscribers to see, perhaps, and have pages turned over every so often. I now mention the Derngate Theater for the part they played in the anniversary. There were many wonderful productions, but listening to the performance of the last night of the proms on a hot July evening was like having a sauna with the radio on. Thankfully, they now have air conditioning. Do you remember the town show at Abingdon Park? It was a great entertainment, and I had just purchased a new lightweight grey suit, for it was a very hot summer, and it was the first time on. In those days, I smoked a pipe, and when it came to lunch in the marquee, I put the said pipe in my pocket. I knew it was going to be hot in there, and so did the chairman, Fred Evans. So he had a fan placed behind me to keep me cool. It wasn't too long before the shout of fire rang out and a hole appeared in my coat. Another memory. Invisible mending does work. Another outside event by the council of this time was the sheepdog trials and country fair held at Derngate, which was always well attended. One of the most memorable occasions was the visit of Viscount Connor Pandy for the first 800th anniversary lecture. The main hall was packed out. I think everyone there was of Welsh descent. He was captivating. I did, however, have the pleasure of introducing him, and I mentioned that when we picked him up from his hotel, there was in the car a collection of Welsh names. Mr. Hughes, the mayor's sergeant, Mr. Roberts, the mayor's driver, Mr. and Mrs. Lloyd, the mayor and mayoress, and himself. It was, in fact, a mini Eisteddfod on wheels. Paddington Bear arrived on the occasion at Castle Station. The mayor and mayoress picked him up in the car and drove him up to Derngate for an underprivileged children's special party. After the formalities, we retired to a side room where Paddington removed his head to reveal a 40-year-old dwarf, and he promptly downed a well-deserved pint of beer. He was brilliant. I have the photos. Other well-known visitors included Alex Higgins, Vince Hill, Stanley Unwin, Derek Nimmo, Bill Owen, Letitia Dean, and 7 draws for the Christmas pantomime. Just before Christmas was a very busy time, with every women's organisation in town vying to produce the best mince pies for the mayor and mayoress. we learnt to be very diplomatic. It was at this time a Russian rugby team came to the town to play an England B-side at Franklin's Gardens. At the reception in the Guildhall later, I welcomed the team in Russian. The council members looked aghast. They thought I'd gone mad. I learned the welcome phonetically, by the way. The team thought it was very high class and applauded vigorously at the evening. Another monumental occasion of 1989, the Berlin Wall came down. Over the course of the year, there were at least 12 civic receptions in the main hall to commemorate the anniversary. People from various organisations, clubs and businesses throughout the town were invited, about 400 at each event. It was as much the townsfolk's achievements over the centuries as it was the council's, a huge success. There were two other freedoms given in the year. One to Dr. Malcolm Arnold, a Northampton-born composer of well-known renown. We all remember Bridge over the River Kwai, but there was so much more. Then, to top off the year, the freedom of the borough was given to Northampton Police. Without a doubt, the most spectacular show of the year. I have never seen so many uniformed policemen in the town centre in my life, all followed by the East Midlands Mounted Police Band. It was the most fitting end to a wonderful year. Councillor Larritt mentioned officers of the past, from Alan Parkhouse, Alan Whitaker, Alan Robinson, David Watt, Neville Kirby. I was most grateful for their support in my year. Throughout the year, there were countless fetes to open, presentations to give at schools, and then new businesses to open. In all, we had 540 engagements, a year we shall always treasure. Thank you for allowing me to recount some of the memories. Thank you, Madam Mayoress.
Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you. That was a lovely trip to the past. I now invite Richard Church to address the council.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and so can I say I really do appreciate the fact that I've been invited to speak this evening and to meet once again so many old friends and colleagues from Northampton, both councillors present and councillors past. It's 10 years ago this year that I stood down from Northampton Borough Council and moved to where I'm speaking from you now, which is the small town of Welshpool in mid-Wales. And Welshpool, like Northampton, ceased to be a county borough in the 1970s. But Welshpool is a very little place. It has a population of 6,000. It's barely big enough to be one ward in Northampton. But it has its town councillor, its town council, and perhaps I'm a little bit ahead of all of you lot because I'm already a town councillor here in Welshpool and have been for the last 4 years. We've got a town hall, which is not quite as big as Northampton's Guildhall, but actually in some ways looks similar. And you can walk around this little town and you can see plaques and things of buildings, council estates, blocks of flats that were built by Welshpool Borough Council before 1974 for the town, as I say, for a very small town. And the council, small as it was, clearly achieved a lot for the town before I moved here. But the other thing I've been doing since I moved here is to research my family's history. And in doing that, of course, I've done a lot of research and learned a lot about the history of Northampton. And that is culminated, if you'll excuse the book plug, in this, which was published last year, which is a book about the history of Churches China, my family, over nearly 200 years. And it's extraordinary how, when doing the research, you see a lot of issues coming round again and again and again. For instance, when my great-great-grandfather moved to Northampton in 1873 and set up his business on Northampton Market Square in Parade House, the big issue in the local paper at the time was the reorganisation of the Market Square. Something which was a great issue to me, as I know it is to Tim now, and as it has been to many, many other councillors over the years before. And then we move forward 50 years to my great-grandfather, who at that time was quite an elderly man. He was 70 years old, and he was caught, terrible criminal that he was, you know, for cycling on the pavement in Billing Road. And he was brought before the then Mayor of Northampton, who was Councillor Lewis, as was reported in the Daily Echo under the heading, The Billing Road Difficulty. I think you still have a Billing Road difficulty, so I read in the Chronicle and Echo. And the defendant, that is my great-grandfather, admitted riding the cycle on the pavement, but said that he did so much against his will, as it was impossible to ride on the road. And for that, he was fined 2 shillings and 6pence. Perhaps if you'd known that when you elected me to be mayor in 1997, maybe you wouldn't have done so. But issues come round again and again. Going back to, I found one or two other props actually to add to this little plate. I don't know whether you can all see that. That was made by my great-great-grandfather to celebrate the opening of the Town Hall extension in 1889. My great-great-grandfather was a friend of Matthew Holding, who was the architect who built the section of the Town Hall, of which, of course, you should have been meeting tonight, had it not been for COVID. Another little prop here. This is actually a moustache cup featuring Northampton Town Hall. And there you are. Perhaps you might need that, Tim, to protect your moustache when you have a cup of tea. By the way, if any of you ever find any other little mementos like this in antique shops or anywhere else, I'll be always very happy to buy them off you. And of course, my family had other encounters with the town, with the borough council over the years. The demolition of the Emporium Arcade in 1971, sad occasion, which of course led on to the building of the Grosvenor Centre. And one other little prop, which Malcolm Lloyd, I know, will remember in particular. This, my business, family's business, made to commemorate the 800th charter year. That is the logo that we used during that year. And I still use this sometimes to have a cup of coffee out of. And just one more memento, and I think probably one councillor here won't want to see this at all. Sally talked earlier about the gang of 4 councillors who were elected in 1983. There's me on one side. I don't think I've changed the pitch since then, do you? On the opposite side, you see Alderman Sally Beardsley. She hasn't changed at all. In the middle, you see the now sadly late Tony Ramthwaite, who died 7 or 8 years ago, and Christine Toulon at the front, who still lives in Clarence Avenue. And we were the 4 who held the balance of power between John and his colleagues on one side and Malcolm and his colleagues on the other side for that 4-year period from 1983 to 1987. I was very honoured and very pleased to be mayor in 1997 to 1998. I should remember, and I think perhaps it's particularly relevant to the award which you've so rightly given to the Sikh community this evening, perhaps to remember my immediate predecessor as mayor, who was the first Asian mayor of Northampton, Jaswant Singh Baines. And I'm sure if he was still with us today, he would have been very pleased to have seen the award that you have made tonight. And I now look at Northampton from 130 miles away. I still very much view it as my hometown. And this last year has been the longest period in my life when I haven't visited the town. I think the last time I came was in January last year. I was hoping to come a number of times to give talks to various Northampton organisations about the book I've written. And of course, all those have had to be cancelled, or I hope postponed, because I hope that they will be able to organise them again when the talk is finished. I was due to come to the opening of your wonderful new museum and art gallery, and I hope that that opportunity too will come when that museum is opened. And I do agree with very much of what John Dickey has already said about what has happened to the town and what is happening to the town. But I would say that whatever happens to the town in terms of local government, its spirit and its community and its heritage will live on. And I think that's so important. And I do remember as my years as a councillor, both on the borough council and on the county council, that there were many occasions when divisions were not necessarily on party lines, but between those who were Northampton councillors and those who came from outside.
3 more minutes.
Thank you. I will finish as quickly as I can.
Okay.
And I know that the new council, West Northamptonshire Council, and I wish it well, but a majority of its members will continue to be representing Northampton. And I'm sure that you will all work together across party to make sure that Northampton's voice is still heard in the years to come. So I wish you all well. Thank you very much for inviting me, and all the best for the future.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much for giving up your time tonight. Item 10, we move over to political group speeches. I now invite Councillor Jonathan Nunn to say a few words.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I think at this point it's time perhaps for a little reminiscence, perhaps a little talk about the future and so on. Here's a few thoughts from me. So as someone who was born in Northampton and has generally lived my life in or around the town, I've always been extremely proud of the town and always felt very fortunate to live within it. There's lots of things about it I've always liked from the time I was a child. I like the size of it. It's big enough to have everything you need. It's small enough to have a form of community feel and to really engender a sense of belonging. I think there's a lot about the people of Northampton. There's a lot about the character, the forthright attitude of people, the humour of people, the character of the town through its architecture, its history, and so on. The diversity of the town through its diverse communities and through the diversity of the assets and the facilities that are available to people that make up that unique identity. And perhaps also the countryside, the beautiful countryside that surrounds it. So when I was first elected to the Borough Council in 2011, I was absolutely delighted to quickly find that I was part of a cross-party council. People who, like me, were passionate about the town. And you know, that passion grows, I think. And I think in a sort of way that love for the town and passion I'd always felt is somehow it finds an identity through the civic work that we do in the council. It's through events like this and so on. And of course, doing this job for the last few years has been the most marvellous opportunity, as some people have already talked about in their roles over the years at the council, to discover so much more that's great about Northampton. That's about the people. It's about so many places around the town. It's about the businesses, or it's about the groups. It's about the charities, the voluntary sector, and so on. And we have so very much to be proud of. So I've felt that passion across all parties, and I think having that common view, whilst I hear those comments about committee, and I've always believed you get a better decision with more people involved. It may take longer, but you will get a better decision that people sign up to. So committee processes are attractive to me, and I believe that's something we should pursue after the first year of having to have a cabinet. According to the government, we should look at getting back to a system like that, because I firmly believe it's the collaborative work that we have done across parties, and I thank the leaders of the two principal oppositions, Councillor Stone and Councillor Beardsworth, for the way that they've allowed us to do that. We confront and challenge each other as appropriate, but actually we all focus on the town to do what is right for the town. And many of the discussions and meetings that we have had have started great ideas that have led to bring improvement for the people of the town. So we've done that recently, and I think, and this evening has confirmed that really, where I hear what predecessors are saying, that actually traditionally that is how Northampton has operated. For me, as somebody from the private sector, working in corporate businesses, small family businesses, which my parents ran in and around the town, working and becoming more a part of the public sector has been unusual, but that has been perhaps one of the greatest privileges. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the people I've worked with. George Candler, as Chief Executive in the last 2 or 3 years that we've known him, has done an extraordinary job in changing the whole culture and the dynamism around this town. There's nothing we have asked George to do that he hasn't subsequently delivered and achieved. And I'm very grateful to him for that. In addition to which, we've got a marvellous senior officer team who work together collaboratively, again with a spirit of challenge, but a spirit of collaboration, and working together have achieved a great deal. Indeed, I'd like to thank every single member of staff. There's nobody within our organisation who I'm not proud to have worked alongside. And on the elected side, my own cabinet, a bit of tremendous support. I think the stability we've managed to create, the positivity that we've created, and the way in which everybody has grown and learned more and more about their specialist areas has served the town well and has been of huge support to me. Indeed, the support of my whole group, and once again, of all councillors across the whole council. We have a highly professional team, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be a part of it. But so now we move to unitary. And let's be absolutely clear, we didn't ask for it. We didn't necessarily want it, not in the form in which it's being taken to us. We asked 4 times in a number of different ways. We were told no, there was just the one option, and this is what we're heading towards. My sincere hope is that that passion that we've heard so much of this evening amongst all councillors who represent Northampton will continue, along with, of course, the new town council, which will have a very central focus or a very clear focus and local focus on the central area of the town. And that in doing this, our town will continue to be served well. It's very clear for me, our county is not the county council. It's a historic county that's been around a lot longer. Our town is not the borough council, albeit the huge pride we feel in it. It is a town of historic significance, as much history as York or anywhere else you want to mention. It has its own identity, and I hope that it has its own bright future. So what happens in local government is one thing, but what we in local government, for those of us who may be lucky enough to continue into the West, what we do will be what shapes the future and the prosperity of what's currently a very rapidly changing Northampton. The new unitary makes a general promise that it will be better for residents. And my view is to hold to account, whether I have a part in it or not, that the unitary does that. Undoubtedly, there will be opportunities to improve services and the efficiency in the way that things work together, departments come together, and so on and so forth. There will be economies of scale and what have you. But ultimately, its success will be, and what must not be lost, is that collaborative approach to do the very best we collectively can for the residents of Northampton. What must not be lost is that passion for our town, indeed for each of the local areas within the West. What mustn't be lost is the momentum that we have now collectively built for the improvement of the town and for improvement in the life of the town. We're very proud of what the borough delivers. We want to continue working collaboratively. It's my view that we can move positively into the West and shape it, but continue to fight for the best for Northampton. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Nunn. Councillor Daniel Stone.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Very, very difficult, isn't it? I really appreciate the organisation of this meeting tonight, because I think closure is really, really important, and this event has given us an opportunity to have closure as one kind of phase of our history comes to a conclusion. Another one is opening up, and it's giving us time to reflect on what has gone well and what lessons that we have learned from the past that we need to take into the future with us. And having said that, I would like to echo what Jonathan has just said in thanking all the staff, and in particular George. When he arrived, we badly needed change. We badly needed a change in culture, and we needed to get back a sense of optimism and drive for the town. And George has certainly been able to do that for us, but he's been able to do it with the team around him. And so I think that's very, very important. I've been a councillor for 10 years. When I first became a councillor, I didn't really know what that was going to mean, even though I'd been a public servant all my life. And I have benefited hugely from working with all my councillor colleagues and with all the officers. So I'd like to thank everybody that I've worked with and I've learnt from over that period of time. I think we are living in very, very difficult times. We've had 10 years of austerity or more. We've had Brexit. We've had COVID. We have had the challenges of reorganisation. These are big, big events in people's lives. And what we've discovered through all of that is extraordinary resilience and the capability of our communities to work together, to look after each other, to make sure that families and households and communities survive. And we've heard tonight about how in particular the Sikh community have contributed enormously to all of that. But really important lessons for us to learn about that. I think community resilience, community engagement is the heart of every town and place, and that is what we need to safeguard. I am never ever going to get over the fact that where we are now has been imposed by central government on us. We were not part of that decision making, but it is up to all of us to make the future for ourselves, our children and our communities as bright as it can possibly be. And I know that we're all very dedicated to that. And I am absolutely of the opinion that even though we have some decisions imposed on us, that isn't the end of the story, that we have got the capacity to be shape makers, to be place makers, that by working together, we can actually change what is going on. And we can do that as individuals, and we can do that as a member of a community group. And we can do that as a member of a political party. And we can do that by the trade unions we work through. And we can do that by voting. And I think it's a really, really important message to take out to people, you know, that their activity, their commentary, their vote, their actions are all important. These are the things that make us who we are, and it makes the place where we live what it is. And we need those contributions from everybody to help us face the future and get the very best we can. It's going to be a challenge working with West Northampton Unitary, and we need to make it suit the needs of Northampton. We need a strong voice for Northampton because Northampton is very special. We've heard tonight about all the different things, all the different ingredients that make Northampton special. We need to hang on to that, and we need to carry that forward with us. I think the town council and the parish councils are going to be really, really important in the way they interface with the new authority. So I'm looking forward to the local elections, and I'm looking forward to the new formations of all those different authorities. And I think we've got enough to be proud of, enough confidence in our town, enough resilience in our town to make it work for us, this new reorganisation. So I would like to thank everybody. And Jonathan and Sally, we have worked together very, very well. We've never been shy of saying where we don't agree with each other. We've never been afraid to do that, but we've also looked to see where we can be collaborative and work together for the town. So I'd like to thank you for that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. I now invite Councillor Sally Beardsworth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will just be very, very brief because we've had a lot of speeches tonight, and I echo both what the leader of the Conservative and the Labour Party have said. When I first got elected in 1983, I was immensely proud, and I still am today, representing the people of Kingsthorpe. I've seen a lot of things that have gone wrong on the borough and county, and I've seen a lot of good things. And I want to take that experience to West Northampton to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes again, and we can still triumph on some of the good things. The people of Northampton expect us to do a good job, and we should. And with common sense and a lot of heart, we will achieve that. I'd like to thank all the staff again, because they have been a wonderful support to all of us councillors, and we wouldn't have achieved what we've done. But the behind the scenes, I'd like to mention Tracy Tiff, I'd like to mention Caroline, I'd like to mention Liz Mann, all these people that have the news and the information at their fingertips and actually do a wonderful job. And you can ring them at any time and they'll find out for you. These are the people we need to take to West Northampton to make sure we have that continuity, and let's hope we do. But I'd like to thank everybody for tonight. It's been an immense pleasure, and thank you all for a wonderful evening I shall never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beardsworth. I'd like to invite non-returning members if they wish to say a few words. If you want to just indicate if you are not returning. Councillor Markham, you have a few minutes. Councillor Markham?
Yeah, sorry, the stay muted and the unmuted came at the same time. I was already trying to press stop. Yeah, I was told this afternoon about this at the end of the meeting, opportunity of non-returning members to say a few words, and it will be a few words. I'm not returning to, I'm not taking up the challenge or the opportunity or whatever to be a councillor on West Northamptonshire. I am thinking of taking the new town council, but I first stood for election in 1979, which makes me almost as been around as long as a lot of those people who spoke tonight. So what I wanted to me, having been a councillor for over 20 years on the borough, this is just to say it's really a sad occasion. And I thank those people who've taken part tonight. Yeah, it is a big change, but personally, what I will take from it is the people, the friends I've made from all parties, but also the support, friendships, and of the people who worked for us over those years. And it's been incredible over the last year how they've dealt with it. They've faced all the challenges of finding support and money for the community, and they've done it, and they've been working, you know, at home, and yet you can still ring them up, you can still email them. So once again, I just want to personally say a big thank you to everybody who's helped me in my role as trying to help my community, the area I serve, over the many years. And just thank all those, and I'm be very sad indeed when this meeting is over.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. Councillor Hadlin.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This meeting has been all about, or largely about, the past of the Borough Council and its ups and downs. I just want to wish all the people going forward, the staff and members and electoral candidates, all the luck in the world in their future in West Yorkshire or wherever they happen to find themselves. Good luck to absolutely everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Hadland. I'd like to say this now concludes the ceremonial meeting, but before we leave, I'd like to thank the outgoing Mayor for his patience and understanding during COVID and attending where he could and hosting our meetings via the internet. And I'd like to also thank the staff. I've got Ed on my left here and I've got Tracy on my right, who do a sterling job and have worked really tirelessly over the year and years supporting us councillors, and I wish them luck into the future. I also like to thank George and the staff at the borough who have worked tirelessly to support all the councillors and the mayor moving forward. And it is a sad occasion, but I think it's important to move with the times and let's make Northampton a better place for everyone. I want to congratulate all the Freedom of the Boroughs mentioned tonight and the aldermen and alderwomen. I think it's an absolute honour to be part of the very last meeting, and I wish you all the best and look forward to the future together. Thank you.
Well,
Councillor Larratt. Councillor Larratt, did you want to say something?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. It is a sad occasion, but can I thank you for the way you have chaired this meeting tonight? It's gone exceedingly well. It's very enjoyable, and can I wish you well in your new role as Town Council Mayor. So
Thank
good
you
luck
so
for the future.
much. Thank you, much appreciated. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.